Welcome everyone to Dissolving the Divide. This is episode number 6, and we are super excited to continue our conversation about the divides between people. Our mission here is to have conversations that help to dissolve the divide, that bring the synthesis to the polarities that are creating conflict among people and stealing our freedom. So today we have a wonderful guest, a friend of mine, Will Keller, and I want to, of course, introduce Derek Bartolicelli, my co-host. And Will is a friend of mine. We've been together working in a Sunday support group for natural law content creators. And Will has been really instrumental in, creating the funnel conference, the Freedom Under Natural Law. Will has been doing natural law work for quite a while now. He does the graphic design for Mark Passio's podcast. He is a producer for the One Great Work Network. He has his own websites and work that he's doing under his own name. I'll let him talk more about that.
Natural Freedom League with John, yeah.
Right.
Got it going on.
Natural Freedom League with John Rowland. So he's very active in the community, and we're really happy to have him here today. We are going to now talk about how, as humans, we have become separate from our true nature, separate from nature, and from our core spirituality. That's the topic for today. So with no more intro, let's bring on Will Keller. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. You both are beautiful people. I love the work that both you guys do. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Will.
All right.
Right on, Will. Thank you. Yeah, it was great. Just real quick. What you and Chris Jansen did with Freedom Under Natural Law, the Convergence Conference. Hold on, my phone's ringing. Leslie, take over. We were both in, actually. But yeah, Will, I really appreciate you inviting me on there, throwing a little music snippet in the little morning intro session. That was really a blessing in and of itself. And yeah, it was just great, doing that whole 10-hour a day conference. So yeah, thanks so much. Leslie had a great presentation as well as Will and Chris, and yeah, everyone in the mix, just doing wonderful, powerful, great things. So yeah, thank you.
It was a fun event. It's really nice to be in a supportive group atmosphere, and also, have kind of like a business structure where we're creating content to try to influence and affect change in the world, and to bring in that element for Funnel 2, which was, we want all types of art, because this is what we're really creating. We're creating, this is energetic expression. That's what art is. And it has an inspirational aspect and attribute to it, which really is what we're trying to do. We're trying to inspire people to take action within themselves and within their own life to affect change. And so it was nice to have music, dance, and spoken word and presentations and on just, videos. It was really an awesome conglomerate of content.
Yes, and we're gearing up for the 2023 funnel. So stay tuned.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. Looking forward to it. It's an ongoing progression. We're just going to try to upgrade the skills and the quality, and it's going to be great.
Yes, looking forward to it. All right. Well, we have you here today. Can you tell
back
us...
to nature? Oh yeah,
right, back to nature. Tell us a little bit about your background and what inspires your connection to nature.
Excellent. Yeah. Nature is a huge integral part of my life. I was raised on a ranch of just 8 acres on the offset of a suburb in the Bay Area of California. So I had access to the natural world at a very young age, and playing with animals, bugs, interacting with the natural forces, having a creek and just behind my house. It really touched me. My younger brother, he was just a straight jock and just got into sports. I didn't get into sports till later on. I was what you would say, I guess, weird and eccentric in a natural way. Like I wanted to go out into the woods or in the creek and walk around and do all that kind of stuff. But it was nice having the balance of, just being several minutes off a suburb. So I had like the city life I could tap into, but also where I reside, my home life was on this ranch. And, my parents, my dad's from Montana, my mom's from Arkansas. So they have this mentality of being close with nature. Camping and all this kind of stuff was really big in my childhood. And I think that's important to bring in the play aspect that we don't really talk about that much. And this, also leads into like archetypes and stuff. It's like when kids, when they play when they're young, this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to throw rocks, skip rocks down a river and a creek to see the cause and effect, to see the ripples. And that actually has a profound effect for children, to play with bugs, play with dirt and all this kind of stuff, because you're interacting with the natural forces. It's a lot different from, a young child not going outside, not knowing the natural world, and just, maybe being on a phone or just straight video games or having these artificial modalities. It creates a disconnect.
Yes. What do you think that a person who does not have, that connection in nature as a child, what is the effect of, what is that disconnect? Can you be more specific about what that disconnect might be?
Sure. That's a great question. Well, and we can observe this today too. The disconnect is ultimately disconnect from self, right? So, I mean, nature, when I say nature, we're talking about creation. And we are a part of that, human beings. So our psychology, our emotional world, our physicality, this is all nature. This is all nature. The how we interact, the fundamental principles, the elements that comprise our body, our psyche and our emotions. This is all part of creation. This is all part of nature. We can look in the natural world and see that this is a holographic universe. Right? We are fractals of the all, the source, God, whatever you want to call that. But I do want to get into later about the term God, and we can dive into that. But so we are we're a microcosm of the macrocosm, and the universe is inside us, and vice versa. So we can come to understand ourselves on a very deep level, and also understand the higher, larger forces at work, and understand that there is a symbiosis, there is a harmony, that all things flow in and out of and together in balance. So stepping out of that harmony, disharmony, opposition, there will be effects from that. And we're pretty much seeing that. I mean, we've been seeing that for hundreds and thousands of years, what the disconnect looks like. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, it's just this gradual, incremental, human progression, evolution. Of course, we've had jumps with the whole technological eras, from the, a couple centuries ago. And now it's like quantum leaping, with all the quickening of all this high tech and all this stuff. So yeah, it is easier to see that discord, but yeah, it's like all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, how did we get here? Almost, well, it's like just like this techie takeover, and I've been kind of saying that with the whole Bay Area, unfortunately. And yeah, I grew up on the other side of that body of water, and yeah, we're gonna meet up one of these days when I'm back, visiting my folks. Will, but yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
actually. Sorry to interrupt, but Leslie, to answer your question, the effect is human suffering, immorality, incorrect thinking, incorrect actions, control, slavery. These are the effects of not being in harmony, in balance with the natural world, with nature, with creation. So it's not like we step outside of that. It's all a part of that. You're getting the negative polarity, which is stagnation. It's degrading. It's death.
Right.
And death is something that we can dive into. It's a huge part of nature. Death and life, they're equal. But for evolution, for our species, what we came here to do is, evolve and learn lessons and learn to attain higher consciousness. We need to understand harmony with nature, with creation.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, just like the law of correspondence and how, there's this, death and rebirth and all that stuff. And, we can talk about compost and all this stuff. And I kind of had in mind this video that I did of, the whole mental landscape alchemy, and what are we doing? Are we actually going to be composting all these old, dead thoughts and, ideas about ourselves to, regrow, a newer, better version of ourselves? That's just like part of like natural cycle within ourselves, as well as we see in nature throughout the seasons and all that stuff, even though things are kind of manipulated for the wrong reasons. But that's another topic in and of itself. But yeah.
Absolutely. And just like composting, right? You're going to create soil. There's going to be effect from composting, right? The worms come in and they create soil and all this kind of stuff. I mean,
that chemical gold, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. If we're composting incorrectly, to use the analogy, right? We're going to have soil that has no nutrients in it.
Yeah.
Or the worms can't survive. And so the biosphere is unsustainable. So you can equate that to immoral actions.
So our relationship to nature, in one sense, helps us to know ourselves, so that as we are in nature, observing nature, we get reflection about ourself. There's a self-knowledge that comes from being in that connection. And when we disconnect from it and we are now sort of at the mercy of, let's say, technology, then it seems like we bypass the self-knowledge and instead receive the programming that's coming in.
Correct.
And maybe perhaps makes people more vulnerable to that mind control, to the programming, without knowing their true self. Because and how do we find ourselves? A lot of times it's about going into nature, right? In silence, in the natural feedback environment.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to understand that nature, this is a divine design on purpose. It has intention. It is created. And so when we can understand this, absolutely, we can understand that the system is there for guidance. It's there for our benefit. Mm-hmm. It's the teacher.
Yeah.
Also, right? It's the teacher that's kind of, it's guiding us, saying, okay, nope, you're not on the correct path. You need to go this way. And so it's on us to kind of accountability and responsibility. It's on us to take this action, to see that and recognize that and have that awareness, so we can learn from these lessons. And I mean, what's going on nowadays, this is one of the root of the problem. It's also called the Inversion Principle. The social engineers know this. I mean, it's profound how well they know this, that if they can take our awareness off of this divine design, the system, nature, natural law, right, then we are going to be in the thresholds of ignorance, therefore going to create a certain outcome, and that outcome benefits them, which is ultimately control and slavery, just due to our ignorance. So we are absolutely consenting to this, all of us, right? At some point, when we look at the aggregate, the collective of humanity as a species, we are totally consenting to this, and our lack of action creates their dark benefit and agenda.
Right. As we stop understanding ourselves, then we become more vulnerable to that agenda. And it seems to me that in nature is where we would learn those hermetic principles, right? That if through observation. And so when we are not there, we are not connected to our ultimate teacher, as you said, which we could call God. And so nature, do you see that as synonymous in a sense with God? And I was thinking about the word netter. Maybe you could share a little about that. Your thoughts?
Excellent question. Yeah, definitely wanted to go down this route. So let's just look at the word. Let's start with the foundations. Look at the word nature. The word nature, it comes from Cometian, and it's pronounced netcher, very similar to nature. It's the Egyptian spelling is NTR, and what this means, the definition of nature means creation. And the word natural means of or related to creation. So this is non-man-made. Using the word God, I have no problem with that, but I don't usually use that word because of Christianity and the implications of, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years of the Christian mindset that's been implemented and used as a weapon. And I can definitely, you know, expand on that as well, has been used as a weapon. So the average person, and I even see this in the truth community too, when someone uses the word God, they think of a being.
Yeah.
They think of a male being, like a human. It's humanized, right? It's anthropomorphic, right? We turn it into a human being. That a being is the creator. This is God. This is a monotheistic mindset. This is programming and conditioning.
Yeah, and kind of patriarchal, because we always think of, you know, the white beard guy, whatever, you know, like
Absolutely.
That's
why I said male. Yeah. This is the problem with the cultural religions. What do? They take the feminine out of the aspect. It's a wrap. You can't take one out of the other. But if you take the feminine, if you take the care out, then you're just speeding up the process of ignorance and apathy. So the goddess principle has been removed, but with these cultural religions, it's ultimately been occulted. We need to first understand, you know, history and astrotheology and the allegory of these teachings, but also understand the why. Why are they created? What really happened? If we think about, you know, the distant past, even before there was writing, right? What would you do? You would observe. You would stare at nature, at the natural world. You would look at the heavens above, the cosmic ceiling, right? You would stare at this and you would observe it. And time during that period had a completely different feeling, and it was relative at a different aspect, meaning that these people, their pattern recognition was extremely high, you know, days, weeks, months, years, just constantly observing. They recognize these patterns in the natural world. And that gave them profound insight, right? Because we're human beings. We are tenfold away from the animal kingdom. And this is another problem, is that people think human beings are just another animal. We evolved from apes. No, we didn't. Not true. Incorrect. There's no facts or evidence of that whatsoever. Actually, on the contrary, it's the opposite, right? So we are gifted with the capacity of logic and reason. This gives us the benefit to discern, for logical deduction. We're able to recognize patterns at a higher level. So we can observe the natural world, and yes, that gives us profound insight within ourselves, because when you observe the cosmic atmosphere and you see the seasons and you see the change and you see how the natural operates, well, now you're correlating this with yourself, with your people, right, with your tribe, and just the psychic environment, the psychic weather, and you're starting to see that there's correspondences.
Yes.
So, you know, this is
right. So the ancients were master observers, like you said, and observers of nature, to look at the patterns of the stars and the cycles of seasons and effects over time. And it seems that when one is disconnected and is more, I don't know, you know, perhaps in our world today, more in the technology, more in the daily grind, that the skills of observation are diminished. And so then people stop seeing those larger patterns, and they actually stop seeing what's going on in the big picture of the world, and get stuck in the little micro world that they're in, that oftentimes isn't even real. right?
Yeah,
It's
you nailed
virtual.
it. It's fully artificial, meaning that it's man-made, it's created. Yes, we're human beings, so yes, we're part of nature. So we can create technologies and things that are natural because it's in harmony with nature, with creation. But absolutely, you nailed it. The problem is that when we don't have this knowledge, this awareness, we are detached, obviously, from creation. I had another thing that I was going to say, and it escaped my mind because I really liked what you were saying.
Yeah, no worries. But maybe if I say something,
Yes,
we'll
please go
come
ahead.
back to you. But yeah, real quick, keep in context, back with these master builders and everything, they structured a lot of, architecture to be aligned to certain, stars, and they got to see like how many, 100,000-fold better the night sky than we can today. And yeah, like I did a great show with Crip Rick because I've been thinking about technology for a long time, and stemming from some projects I've done in the past, and just how some of this technology is great, but it kind of, when we aren't properly using it, especially out of moderation and letting it, do everything for us except wipe our butts, kind of like, we're losing those life skills in so many ways. And yeah, like taking the focus off of, the real study of nature for ourselves. And we can use technology with certain tools to like measure certain things, to like get better, deeper perspectives and insights to things. But, if we're going to be letting the tech, run the show and do it all for us, especially with the AI stuff coming down the line now, yeah, we're going to be in more trouble than we already are, in a sense, and just be more detached from nature and to
more
bring it back to natural laws.
dependent.
But, it gets us back there, in a sense.
Yeah. I think it also brings us to more dependency on the authority system, on the control system. The further we are detached from nature, the more that kids don't learn survival skills, that they don't learn basic, ways of living and surviving in nature. Then what happens when we don't have, big mama and daddy, taking care of us? We're at a disadvantage.
Correct. Exactly. We're spiritual children. We are ultimately devolving, and we're becoming, and most people are in that victim mindset where we're dependent on government institutions and the world nowadays, right? This artificial system that we created. Now, I'm not against technology. The word technology, you could break it up to technology, which techno means like a craft, a created craft, and logi is logic. So we can use technology to advance our logic or to assist our logic. But, guess what? When we die, we don't take technology with us. We don't take the material possessions with us. So what we know, what we come to learn and experience is the value. That is the value. And we are obviously devolving because we are disconnected with this information. We are losing it. It's been occulted. It's being hidden on purpose. So it's really important to return to nature, as I call it, returning to ourself, which ultimately, it's not like we're separate from it. Of course we're not. It's what I mean by is bringing our awareness back to it, bringing it from the shadow, the unconscious mind, and bringing it to the forefront to our conscious awareness. Because as you both know, when you bury, you ignore trauma and insecurities and this type of information, it will create the shadow, right? The shadow is actually a good thing in the unconscious because it's trying to get your attention. So it's trying to show you falsities, and this will affect your behavior and your emotional stability, and it will come out. But it's there to get your attention, and unfortunately, just the majority of people don't have the awareness. They don't have the faculties to recognize that. So it just keeps spiraling out of control. And the social engineers feed on this. This is exactly where they want us to be. So yeah.
Yeah, and just people are caught up in so much, on the daily grind, the rat race, leaving them with a sad face. They might not end up in last place, but at the same time, like people can succeed in all this stuff and do great things. And I think a lot of people, want to have a connection with nature. It's just yeah, just, you know, the social engineers and all these, you know, flashing lights and so much entertainment and, you know, screen time to look at. It's like, hey, sometimes we'll just be lazy enough to just, you know, watch and enjoy nature from, you know, our TVs and all that stuff. And for some people, I mean, like sometimes that's all they got because they're in the city. I've lived in all different types of places, and you know, living in Paris is like where they got parks and this and that, but they're all gated. So it's like it's like they imprison nature in a sense, you know. It's just like weird sometimes. Yeah, it's for, you know, to not have homeless people and blah blah blah, druggies, yada yada. But
And
yeah,
it's a divide.
it's
right?
almost symbolic though, you know. You just see that and you're like, oh, like
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and this is why I love these conversations, because what we're doing, we want to create clarity, because this is the problem. A lot of people don't actually understand what nature is. You know, to be in harmony with nature does not mean every morning you go on your little hike, you go camping during the summer, right? That's the material world. I mean, it's part of nature, but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about consciousness, awareness of the principles of nature, the laws of nature. You can live in the city and actually and be in harmony with nature, no problem, because you understand the forces of nature and how they operate. So you align your thoughts, emotions, and actions to nature, to the higher forces. And this is really important. Though I do not agree that human beings should be, you know, packed in like sardines in these cities. I don't think that is beneficial, but sure, one can still attain balance in that type of atmosphere, and you know, there's nothing immoral about that. So it really comes down to, you know, understanding consciousness and the forces of nature.
Yeah, a lot of people I was thinking about, you know, go into nature and they drive their ATVs, or they are on their boats, you know, eating up a lot of gas, or they're leaving their garbage around after their picnics, you know, and there's a certain usury, I guess, of nature, as opposed to sort of the respect and the acknowledgement of it as a living spiritual being that is part of our own survival. It's our home, our base. And I think that is a reflection of this disconnect as well.
Yes.
Yeah, like what happened to us being like the stewards and just like having a symbiotic relationship with nature, and like obviously we're on the wrong side of that harmony and balance.
Exactly.
So yeah, like
we are bonded with the earth. The earth is a living being as well on a planetary level. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of occult traditions talk about that we are climbing this ladder of ascension of higher awareness. And, you know, what is after a human being? Well, it's planetary, it's cosmic, right? So it goes up these ladders. You know, that's something to speculate. But yes, we're bonded. So we are stewardships of the planet, of the animals, of the plant kingdom, of just the whole biosphere in general, to be in harmony with and to help. A German word, like a Norse Germanic word, is unweld. It means the world around. And this is the kind of the stuff that I'm talking about when the ancient peoples, our ancestors, used to observe the world. They were tapped into the unweld. That's what they were tapped into. And it's really important. But we can look at indigenous cultures nowadays, and we can see that mental illness is not an issue whatsoever. And if it is every once in a while, they understand healing, that healing means whole. So mental illness is a lack of, there is something broken. There's a fragmentation in the psyche, and they understand what to do. And they have their rites of passage, and they, you know, the village as a whole participates in this. But mental illness is slim to none in indigenous cultures. And guess what? If you know, some type of catastrophe happens, who's going to be around still? The indigenous cultures.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, it's observable that the more that indigenous cultures are sort of invaded and interfered with, you know, the more ill, you know, the more problems develop, addictions and things.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but
just look at, you know, on any given reservation, you know, I was talking with Mario West about this in New Mexico. There's, reservations, casino areas, and, these people are just, they get their little, government handouts, whatever, and they're not even worried about working. And they're just like drinking and drugging their lives and money away with all that stuff.
Exactly.
And it's so sad because they're, they come from like, those Native American traditions where they were pretty in touch with nature. And that's kind of why they got targeted by, more darker forces in the past, to invert and pervert them, just like their modus operandi for so many other things. But sorry, we'll take over, man. You're all good.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because that totally sparked something in me. This is what, people need to understand history. It's really important, but true history. First, you have to understand that, yes, there is truth. We can discover that, but also there's a lot of things that we're not going to know on purpose. That, we don't have enough information to understand this, but there is a lot of information out there to give us clarity and give us a more accurate perception. The social engineers, this bloodline of control that has been going on for thousands of years, they knew hundreds and hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, that they had to do one thing, and that is they had to destroy the indigenous cultures, all cultures. I'm not talking about one race. This is not about race. This is about species, a human species. They need to destroy that. So they invaded, they murdered, they slaughtered, created genocide, and they also had, profound knowledge of natural law, understanding that it has to, if any change is going to stick, it's got to change in the mind. So they create these ideologies, the cultural religions. And, we look no further than Judaism, Islam, Christianity, the most brutal, deadliest, murderous cults in history, all in the name of quote unquote God, right? The incorrect term of God. So, but the point is to fracture and destroy the indigenous cultures. Because why? Because they hold the knowledge. They are profound in the knowledge of nature, of natural law. Yeah. And that's where the fragmentation started for human beings. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the difference between involution and evolution, and the how the fragmentation and the shift in our relationship to nature is an involutionary process, right? Of, leading to chaos, versus in evolution, which the true evolutionary concept, which is living in harmony and being attuned to that feminine principle of care on earth. And when you work with nature, then there's a whole different kind of creation that happens, an evolution of our species. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, that's excellent, for sure. We're going through a stunting of consciousness is what we're going through. And we're intertwined with nature, the macro, so well that it's the most beautiful thing to me. The feminine, the masculine qualities of nature, and also of our psyche. This is extremely important. And I talk a lot about the anima and the animus, right, which is also meaning and purpose on the macro level. But this forms our psychology, right? This is superior to archetypes, right? Archetypes are personalities that we have experienced and we have attained over our past lives as well. We all have these archetypes. Many people have talked about all types of different archetypes, 7 to 36 to 14 to 12 is a big number, right? A lot of researchers associate it with the zodiac and the round table, these allegorical stories. But the point is that we have these energetic aspects of us all that can be understood and can be attained, and they're going to come out regardless. We're going to deal with them regardless. So it's either we harmonize with them and we understand for our betterment and growth, or we resist, and it would cause inner shame. Now, this is where a lot of people, this is different from guilt. Shame and guilt is different. Shame is what you do to yourself. right, is the hurt and the hate you've done to yourself. Guilt is the hurt and harm you've done to others.
Mhm.
Now, what does inner shame do, right? Inner shame, it affects the anima, the feminine aspect of us. You know, the feminine is the healer, it's care, it's the it's inspiration, it's feeling, it's emotion, it's empathy. And if we sever that and fragment that, then our behavior is very controlling. We're fragmenting the psyche. And this is where a lot of the people are. This, obviously, without the feminine and without empathy of self, we're not going to take action whatsoever. So it's like, you know, roll over and die type of mentality. So it's important to understand it's all about the mind. You know, this is why we have these conversations, is to gain information and knowledge for the mind itself, and then apply it. That's where the masculine comes in, applying the information. It's action. It's external action as well. So yeah, I hope I answered that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was thinking about, as you were talking, that we're electrical beings, we're magnetic, you know, and the earth is. And so there's an actual like electromagnetic interaction between us. I mean, we have gravity, but there's beyond that, there's energy exchange. And some of the grounding research, you know, has shown the effects of, you know, being in nature, so having your feet on the ground, your skin touching the earth, having positive physiological effects in the body and mind, you know, our mental state, our emotional state, to feel grounded. We talk about, you know, when people are very anxious or, you know, having difficulties, you know, with their mental state, to get grounded, to connect to your body and your connection to earth. And to the extent of even like putting your hands in the ground, right, is a relational experience that regulates our bodies. Right. And I think that right now, as we're being bombarded with so much, you know, the EMFs and all the stuff in the air, you know, we're becoming, you know, a species that's becoming very ungrounded, and our kids ungrounded, which is very unpredictable in a sense. You know, it's non-directed almost.
Yeah, totally. Just real quick, because like within us, you know, we're going to talk about the masculine and feminine. It could also be corresponded to, like, you know, there's positive and negative charge within us, and negative not in the sense of, oh, it's, you know, bad, or, you know, just like it is what it is. It's that electromagnetism as well, and that's why those frequencies are being distorted as well, because, you know, it's like as within as without. So if we're having that distorted within us, you know, from all this stuff outside, of course, or whatever, you know, then it's just, there's all these negative feedback loops from that stem from, as Will said, and that term is great, just the whole fragmentation of all that stuff.
The spiritual and actual physiological connection to nature is causing harm, you know. And and like I said, that, you know, you were saying technology is not bad, but there's a sort of balance that seems to be missing, and that rhythm of our own body, our own biorhythms, is affected as well, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I love how you're going into somatic realm, because it's very important. We have to understand that we can look at the mental and the emotional and physical. I can say them separately, and we can talk about them individually, but it's one system that's working, you know, together in harmony or disharmony, obviously. So it's very important. You can't have one without the other. So, you know, ignoring your body, it's just your mind, your emotional state and your mind are going to break down, because we have to understand, like you said, this is a dielectric universe, meaning magnetism and electricity, you know, the pull and the give. and our body works the same way. So I like to describe the body as, or the human vessel as like a radio, right? So we have the physical radio, which is our body. And then we can tune it as well using the brain, and we take care of the radio or the human vessel. Then we can have clarity of signal, right? We can tune into higher frequencies. So that signal that we are getting around us from the energy exchange of the morphogenic field of information, of consciousness that's all around us, it's clear, it's vibrant. We're taking in higher amount of information. So when you if you don't take care of your body, then it breaks down and the signal gets staticky and it gets fuzzy.
Yeah.
Same thing with, like with the mind. If you're tapped into some wrong channel, well, then what you're getting out of the radio, which would be our behavior and actions, is going to be, immoral. So it all depends on what we're tapped into. What signal are we picking up?
Right.
And emotions are extremely important. Emotions is like the compass. This is what about the feeling that is the feminine. It's like if you take that out of the equation and you can't feel, well, if you can't feel, then you can't have empathy for oneself. Therefore, you cannot heal. So all these parts are just so vital. I tell people, if they're kind of down and out and they're feeling like low level consciousness, and they're being affected by the environment or whatever it may be, start with the basics. Start with the body. You have full control of what you put into your body. So, focus on food and clean water, grounding, get your ass and your feet in the dirt. Doing that in general, you're actually taking in the good bacteria and the microbes that absorb into your skin, and you breathe them just by playing in the dirt. Allergies were really never a thing a long time ago. That's because people were always out in the dirt and getting that.
I'm glad you brought up like the nutrition, because you're talking about that morphogenic field. The information in the universe is available to us, but it gets jammed up, right? When we kind of pollute our bodies and the environment. So with all these different things, and so then our tuners, right, get jammed up. So then we don't have that connection, and if we're eating badly and we're not drinking good water, it further pollutes and jams up that communication system with nature. And then I think it leads to a certain level of nihilism and a lack of care, and even the moral relativism that comes from not being grounded in the system of law, right, of the universe. The further we are from nature, then the more random everything seems. And I think that will lead to that who cares mentality, that carelessness that we're seeing a lot in the world.
Sure. Absolutely. And if you have carelessness, then why not identify with your oppressors? You want someone else to take care of it. You want the abdication of responsibility. Let the quote unquote leaders or rulers, experts take care of it. You don't take accountability and responsibility for yourself and your duty as a human. Ultimately, we can sum it down to one question. What does it mean to be human? Now, when I say that question, a lot of people, oh man, that's a huge question. That's crazy. Actually, it's not. It's super simple. Truth, absolute truth, and nature is simple. She's, nature. She's just a shoeless, muddy feet, dreadlock chick. Just walking around in the forest. It's nothing complicated once we have an understanding of it. But what does it mean to be human? We exist. We have a vessel. We are going to interact with the world and other beings. Do we cause harm or don't we cause harm? Of course, I can keep elaborating, but that's what we're trying to do, is to give people information so that they can understand their responsibility of what you're here for and how you're supposed to interact with the world and what is right and wrong. even the word morality, right? The difference between right and wrong behavior, it implies objectivity, because it's saying the difference. There is a difference. Morality has been co-opted from the cultural religions. A lot of people think morality is a Christian thing, right? With the 10 Commandments and the Christian virtues and all this stuff, and all through the other cultural religions. No, morality is a nature thing. It's a human thing. It's how we interact with the world. Are we causing harm or not?
Yeah. I've often thought that there's a parallel between humanity's a tendency to like dig the earth for oil, right? I think of it as like raping the earth and stealing its lifeblood, right? And, the propensity for raping other human beings. I think that there's a relationship, and the same maybe with animals, the brutality of how we treat animals. If we can do that to one form of life, it seems like it opens the door to brutality to our fellow human beings.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. And it's just observing the law of correspondence, from the macro to the micro and vice versa. And just, all right. So what are we putting into our bodies, and how is that being, played out, as far as our behaviors and all this stuff? If we're not, because, I find it necessary to kind of have a decent balance within myself, like not eating all this man-made, processed junk food or whatever, and being able to have like good organic food. And like, I think people got allergies just from like pesticides, like it's like, can we just call organic food real food again one day? But so just understanding the gut brain connection, there's like at least 70% of that. And you take it to the law of correspondence always and forever, right? With as far as this earth is concerned, in the body of water compared to the landmass, and how it's pretty much the same percentage proportionally in our bodies. And just, are we not trying to be earth custodians within ourselves, and just what we see around us? Do we not? This place is beautiful. Why are we making it more ugly than it?
Yeah.
That inner shame, I think correlates to how we don't value the beauty of earth as well. There's a lot of loathing,
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, when we think about, I like what you were saying, Derek, it's made me think about atheists, right? And atheists obviously they do have a religion. It's the religion of materialism and ego and self. But what they're lacking, all it is, it's just they've went to the complete opposite polarity of cultural religion, right? And when they're an atheist, they don't understand. They don't have the awareness and the pattern recognition to see what you're talking about, Derek, the correspondences, even between the earth and the body, right? We are 75% water. The earth is 75% water. Our gut biome, very similar to the microbiome of the earth, and just all of this stuff, right? The seasons is like the respiration of the earth as we breathe in and out, in and out.
Veins in your arm, like rivers, kind of.
Exactly. Mountains, are like the fixed points of our bones, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there's so many that you can go into, not to mention the golden ratio, the toroidal field, the Fibonacci sequence is in everything. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to understand these patterns. So that's where an atheist can start. They have to kind of first, because it's very much ego dominant. They have to step outside of that and start to look at these patterns, and then experience that and correlate that with themselves, because they're all around us.
Right.
Well, sorry, real quick, because I wanted to bring that up. You made me think of atheism like right away, as soon as because growing up, I was polarized kind of towards that side, because I was like, and these Christians talking about God, like, what are you talking about? And all these hundreds other gods. So which one is, and like, oh my God, like really, like, oh my God, like, oh, so how is your God doing to, like,
yeah.
It's just like, I was like, man, screw all this stuff. So I was like, might as well chill with the atheists. But I was like, no, these guys are lost too. So what, where's the happy medium?
Yeah, for sure.
Natural law, baby. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Which is not a religion, damn it. Brandon Spencer. He talks about that. He just put out a presentation. Check it out. It's lovely.
Sweet. I will.
So, Will, how would you differentiate religion from spirituality?
Great question, for sure. First, let's talk about religion. The word religion, there are actually two contexts when you understand Latin, and you have religare, which means, absolutely, it means to bind, to hold back, to tie back, right? And there's also religio, which means to reunite, to tie together. So you have a negative and a positive context, right? And this is something that the English language doesn't have, right? Is that we don't have context, masculine and feminine. So we have to understand language to understand that there is a negative and a positive context. So when we look at the world, first we have to observe and come to an accurate understanding. Are we in a state of religare, or are we in a state of religio? And absolutely, we are in a state of religare, to bind, to hold back from forward progress, from expanding and evolving and our awareness and our consciousness. Now, religion, religare, we can look at the cultural religions, and there's more as well. I would consider money, scientism, materialism. These are all religions as well, right? Religions of ego. Same with the cultural religions. Name one cultural religion that has not said, this is the way, this is the path, only this one. Come on, you know what I mean? So, and one thing I want to say about like cultural religions, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, I'm not going to leave any of them out. I'm all putting them in the same category, is that you have to understand these are man-made. Human beings created these religions, right? They used information from our ancestors to their benefit. So it is not literal. I'll take Christianity, for example. It is not literal. It's allegorical and it's astro-theological. It's astrotheology, meaning that it's Jesus, the Son is the S-U-N, and the 12 disciples, it's the 12 signs of the zodiac. Huge rabbit hole that people need to go down. But when you engage in conversation with the cultural religions, people that subscribe to these, and if you had tried to have a logical Socratic conversation with them to break it down, they get into a cul-de-sac. And because they are man-made, they just go, oh, well, it's just the word of God. God created, God worked through man, and it's God's word. It's all bullshit, especially, the cultural religions, because you have to understand that we can know, Constantine, Paul, these people created the Bible. They created the New Testament, and Christianity didn't exist for a few hundred years after Jesus, right? And so if you even subscribe to Jesus was an actual person, which he absolutely was not. There's no evidence for that. So they're allegorical, they're archetypal, which is important, which makes them timeless, and it actually makes it useful to an extent. So what's the difference of, true spirituality, which would be religio, would be to tie together, harmony, to reunite with nature.
Yeah, but hold on, man, because there's one more cul-de-sac we got to stop at. A lot of people, it's almost like these rites of initiation when we're getting to true spirituality. And I think Mark Passio put it, in his Streetwise Spirituality presentation or the New Age bullshit presentations, which were great and kind of helped me deprogram from some of that stuff, which is another religion that kind of ties people back. But breaking down the word cul-de-sac, it's French, and it means the ass of the bag. That's what it literally means, but
that's great.
Everyone's had to get, so it's like there's that one threshold that people gotta, experience a little shitty business before getting to that true spirituality. I'm not saying everyone. I'm not being a little silly.
I had to write that down, man. That's so good. That's so good. That is so good. But you know what? But there's a lot of truth there, right? What happens?
Of course, yeah. That's why it's so good. And so
when someone is in a cultural religion, like they're a full-blown Christian, what do? They go to the full extreme opposite polarity, like atheism, right? Or of Satanism or something like that, right? They go to that opposite polarity, and then maybe potentially from there they work their way out to the middle, somewhere in the middle where the truth lies, right? So yeah, you got to take that last shit, that cul-de-sac. That's great. But
back to religio.
Yeah.
For sure. But I also want to throw the New Age movement is
Oh, right.
also in that religare, right? This is just repackaged Christianity. The whole
That's what I
Christ
mean, yeah.
consciousness is like, I mean, it's rampant right now. Now, if you're looking at Christ consciousness as higher awareness and being a moral human being, yes, I agree with you. But not that many New Agers actually know that. They don't actually understand the allegory of Christ consciousness, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And also, I would say in the story of Christianity, Jesus is a pacifist. I mean, he died for other people's sins. That's where the social engineers, they throw that in there, right? To trip you up, to put that into your psyche. And also, statism is really big. You look at Romans 13 and all that kind of stuff, right? So they took that, but they took the Jesus story from the Norse tradition of Odin. Odin was also hung on a tree.
He hung himself.
Hung himself.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was about to get to. Big difference. Self-sacrifice. Different than sacrificing yourself for others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what the religions focus on has made a great difference, to how what we take away from that whole allegory of Jesus. And there's all, because they underplay the throwing over the tables and saying no to the bankers and all of that, right? But instead, the real emphasis in Christianity on Jesus, the Jesus story is the dying on the cross.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. And and there are these are occult traditions as well. Mm-hmm. Meaning, why are they occult? Even the Bible is one of the greatest occult books, because nobody actually knows. They don't understand the actual allegorical, archetypal, astrotheological aspect to it. That's what it is. They don't understand that. Therefore, it is occulted. It is hidden information, hidden knowledge. And yes, there's positive path work within each of these cultural religions, but people don't understand that, so they're in a state of religare, to hold back from forward progress.
Right.
Yeah, and they always have to play on these, sacred codes of consciousness to, that's the hook. Gotcha. Oh, you want to know about do unto others and all this stuff, and then
yeah, so you
water it down with all that other
identify
stuff.
with it.
Yeah.
There's also like an encouragement not to question, to have blind faith, just to believe. And then that leads to a vulnerability to worship authority.
Exactly.
And then, and then seeing a God as an authority figure that we need to possibly be afraid of, will be punished by the priests, the ministers, as the authority that knows, the truth. And then how many times in history has that religious, the leaders in religion then justified war, and political decisions and so forth, right?
Exactly. That's ultimately what it creates. It creates the belief in human authority. The belief in human authority, right? So you abdicate your responsibility, and it's all to their benefit. I mean, I'm really big on, people need to get into their ancestry, right? Mm-hmm. All ancestries, whether it's African, Aboriginal, Aztec, Mayan, go back to the pagan animist parts of your ancestral line and study that. Now,
the real pagans, not the inverted ones, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Not these.
Thanks a lot, Christianity. Another one.
The neo-pagans nowadays. Yeah, exactly. A lot of paganism nowadays is for sure. It's Christian. Absolutely. This is why I like the term animism, because it's direct, it's concise. The actual definition is based in truth. That's what we need to get. Which ultimately, for me, that is religio, being spiritual. This whole reality is spiritual. It's a spiritual domain. It's all, it's mental, emotional, and physical, all one system. So being spiritual means that you understand natural law, the laws of nature, the governing dynamics that that govern all things, all of reality, and ourselves and our psyche, everything. Understanding that on a profound level, and then harmonizing your actions, your thoughts, emotions, and actions with this, becoming a moral person. This is what it means to be spiritual.
Yeah.
So,
and there's an aspect of that interconnectedness, right, that comes through that spiritual knowledge. And I don't know, maybe even it's even connected to the monotheistic versus polytheistic or animistic perspective. Can you keep expanding a bit on that, the animism perspective?
Oh, absolutely. Well, what is animism, right? We look at animism, the word. It comes from anima, which means soul, rational soul. It means breath, life force, consciousness. It's all of these terms. This is where animate comes from, or animal, right? Animalia. This is, a being with a soul. So animism is a worldview where you understand that reality is living consciousness and life force energy, and we are all interconnected. And this is where this animism is also considered like the root religion meaning religio, because this is where all the other cultural religions stem from. They've taken the information from our ancestors, the animist ancestors, and they've inverted the information to use it to their benefit and control. So the being an animist, and people have to understand, because when you hear of animism and paganism is synonymous, but what is paganism? Paganism means country dweller. This is a name that if you're a pagan, you're outside the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. That's all it means. It's really a term that Christians gave a certain type of people, because pagans didn't call themselves, "Oh, I'm a pagan," because they just didn't do that. They didn't have awareness of these cultural religions. The cultural religions is what was new and came in and invaded the animists. So for an animist, you understand the interconnectedness. You understand your responsibility. You understand consciousness and energy, and everything is energy exchange. But we don't want to revert back to the past. When I say this, people think of like the show Vikings and shit, like, oh, so we're gonna do human sacrifice and all this. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so ignorant. No, that's not what it means. It's exactly what I'm saying. It's understanding the laws of nature, understanding energy, your psychological faculties, and the correspondence with the earth, with our environment. That's what animism means.
Mm-hmm. And when we're living in harmony with nature, then there's an energy of creation that we can tap into that's harmonic, right? To co-create with nature. And what is the potential of this?
Oh, it's unlimited. Because when we're not individually creating our realities, right? We are co-creators. So collectively, we are influencing our environment to create the reality that we choose. So when we're in harmony with nature, nature is creation. It's creating. This is it's not a created universe. It's a creating universe. We are creating. It's ultimately, this is what freedom is. Freedom is unrestricted free will expression, meaning unlimited potentiality. You can do whatever you want, right? As long as you don't have immoral actions or cause harm. But consciousness, nature wants to expand. It wants more complexity. It wants uniqueness, creativity, all expansion, all of this kind of stuff. This is what attaining higher awareness is. It's expanding out. So the potential of this is, it's mind-blowing. This gets into understanding imagination, and this is a big problem nowadays. A lot of people, the light of the imagination the light is out. When we talk about a truly free society, which That does not mean that there won't be, it doesn't mean a utopia, no such thing as a utopia. But when we don't have a slave system that's dominating the earth and we're in a free state, they can't imagine what that's going to look like. They can't imagine the possibilities, the potential. They can't even imagine human beings working together, cooperating.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, who's going to build the roads? Who's going to do this? Who's going to take care of my grandma in the...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they can imagine things, but it always seems like they're imagining, you know, all the bad things that could happen. They don't want to, like, you know...
That's because they're stuck in a fear-based consciousness.
Voila,
right? They're in fear. All fear is based in ignorance, lack of knowledge.
And not having that template of internally of how they can impact or influence the world in a new way. You know, again, I think like disconnect from nature is a disconnect from self, which disconnects from that creative force, that imagination to be able to see a new way. It's all, you know, they're stuck in the cul-de-sac of this spiral of what they see the world as on TV and in the news. You know?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to branch off of that because it fits in perfectly what I wanted to mention. Just an example of, you know, all right, so I'm in Las Vegas, right? Walking the strip last night with Brandon Spencer. Yeah, we're in the Matrix, you know, it's what a world out there and whirling around, you know, So just like, you know, just living by natural law and, you know, just like being in observation and being in your right rhythm of yourself. You ain't got to have a pep in your step and this and that, but just like observing the rhythm of flow of traffic and people and all this stuff and just like being able to walk without having issues. It's super crowded and just having a smile on your face and realizing like there's all these different frequencies around. It's like you wake up in the morning, it's like, wow, just like Vegas had a hangover last night, I'll tell you that. But yeah, it's like not even drinking myself, but so yeah, you can feel into certain frequencies as well, but still, you know, maintain your own and, you know, ripple that out for others as well. I mean, keeping a smile on your face. I mean, just like little things like that. You know, we're talking about, vibration and all this stuff. It ain't got to be all woo woo mystical. It's just like, how are you living on a day-to-day basis? How are you treating yourself, and how's that inner dialogue, and like how's that, you know, outwardly spoken to other people as well, you know? So yeah, speaking from the heart much or what?
That's a great point, man. With everything that's going on nowadays, there's so much fear, and you know, I'm a realist, you know, that shit's fucked up. It's hard to eat healthy and eat right. Just because it says organic doesn't mean it's organic unless you're actually growing your own food. You know, you have full control of your own food production. I mean, vegetables, fruits, they're depleted in nutrients and all this stuff. My point being, I mean, we have frequencies everywhere, 5G. You can go on and on and on, and it could send people in a spiral of depression and fear. But here's the good news, is that it starts first with your internal ecology, your internal environment, state of mind, emotional stability, right? And what you have control of your physical body. It's really important people focus on that, because I'm a very content, happy person majority of my life, right? I am pissed off about the world. Absolutely. This is this is the fire that motivates me to take action. I see the wrongdoing that is created, but I make sure that my internal ecology is as adequate and up to par as best as I can. I'm not perfect. Some days, yes, you know, I'm in my, it's a wave. It goes up and down. But it's really important people understand that they have forefront of the information they're taking in. Some people just, you know, are constantly taking in podcasts and getting just, you know, these quadruple doses of fear porn. That's going to have effect. That's going to have a huge effect on you. Right. Yeah. So you have to understand the mental diet, emotional diet, physical diet, internal ecology.
And then when you're walking down the streets of Vegas at 2 a.m., then you are able to stay connected to nature through your connection to self and your your energetic connection, right? And, I always, no matter where I am, I have a certain awareness of the sky, the clouds, the feeling of the air on my skin or my breath. So if we can always stay connected to our own breath, our spirit, our anima, right, then we are better equipped to be able to be in these imbalanced environments, right, and not lose ourselves and not be pulled into an extreme, right? But we have to stay really aware of ourselves in relationship to our to nature itself, right? Our connection and our borders of our body, But we breathe, we have skin that sweats, like we're not totally sealed, right? We're hermetically connected.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then, when when the red flag happens within yourself, you can recognize it.
Yes.
Like, all right, I need to take a break, I'm gonna go on a walk or whatever it may be. You're able to instantly or as quick as possible provide your own needs, take care of yourself. You can look at it as like the waveform, right? Which a wave is not a thing, doesn't exist. It's what something does, principle and attribute. So, but if you look at it, you have the ups and downs. This is polarity, right? Most people are fully up, fully down, arc troughed. The point is to try to get it to a straight line. And I'm talking about like your daily activities that incorporates the psyche, the emotions in the body. So it's all about awareness. It's all about seeing the signs, recognizing it, providing the remedy as quick as possible.
That correlates to, my field of, I do mental health counseling with people, and we talk about this window of tolerance, right, for our emotional and mental state, our optimal functioning. And when we're in balance and in alignment within ourself and with our environment, we're able to function and operate in our rhythms within sort of a manageable window. But when we have traumas in our lives, which we all do, and we're being bombarded, then we can easily get knocked into those extremes of, those high highs and the low lows, and become dysregulated and disconnected from our own sort of central homeostasis point, right?
Yeah, excellent. I like that window of tolerance. Now I have a word for it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, just thinking about that line and the arc and the trough and everything. It's the same with the law of rhythm and, the ebb and flow. And how are we able to really master that and be more of the, causal factor to the effects that we have upon ourselves and obviously for others. So just like getting that refinement and Nate Cap, we had him on last night and he made some great points with so many puns intended with that, but it's like that refinement of getting to that pinnacle of just the balance, in all these aspects that correspond in it's just the science of life, and it's just a beautiful thing to being able to just take your time for yourself to just sit back and okay, cool, but a lot of people act like they don't have the time, they don't know how to make the time, or they make excuses for that, whatever. But I don't know, it's like how much care has been activated within the individual to actually will themselves to make that happen. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Really getting in touch and learning deeper. All right, this is where you want to study the hermetic principles, the natural law principles individually, and study them and discover the correlations within yourself and the natural world. That's really important. Now, willpower, it gets low in some people, so low that I do think that intervention is necessary. Intervention as in plant medicines, I think can
deep inner work.
Deep inner work. Exactly. Now, plant medicines have definitely helped me, but I'll say this, it is a tool that can, crack the calcification on the psyche. right? But that doesn't mean it's like, oh, it's a one and done thing. You have the real work comes after that, when you do the integration process, the deep introspection and the work. It's kind of like a catalyst. It's a jump start. It's a shock to your system. This is what plant medicine does. Some people think it's, it's real big in the New Age movement. Like, oh, I did 30 ayahuasca ceremonies in 2 months. Like, oh shit, high vibe, bro. No, that's not what it's about at all. It's about actually doing the work inside.
Yeah, I would say that, when the plant medicine can give us great insights to our inner connection and give us perspectives, yet there are their teachers that then give us all this information, kind of like a dream state, right? Where we aren't going to gain the ultimate gift of it unless we really sit with it in contemplation and reflection over time. I don't think the rushing, of like, through just lots of ceremonies is necessarily where the benefits come. I think it's in that integration, the integration of the ceremony in a ceremonial setting, a very careful, and preferably guided, I think, with someone who knows what they're doing.
I love what you said. It's like a dream state. That's so powerful, because what are dreams? What are they? Right? Dreams are the communication of the internal archetypes. They're communicating with you. This is how they interact, and it's your job to interpret that and take the meaning from that. This is what plant medicine does, but on a tenfold level. Really, really important. I really liked what you said. Absolutely.
So there's a world of symbols and all of that, dreams and medicine.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, it makes me think of just, these windows of perception that we don't really necessarily see, or, it's just like really hard to tap into. Some of these, plant medicine, entheogens, whatever can help with that, especially if people set out the proper intention beforehand, like, oh, the psychonauts and it's all trendy and this and that. All right. So what are you going to do after, that mirror of hardcore, harsh truth is shown your ugly reflection or all these imperfections that you act like, you ain't got? Are people actually going to act upon it? It's like people could look at it's like, oh, okay, that's what's really going on with me. And they could just walk away and just, do nothing about it. It's like, or act like, just by looking at it, something's going to change, like there's got to be that action, the integration. That's such a key word. Yeah. Leslie, I'm so glad you brought that up in the whole ceremonial aspect. Yeah.
So it's not about just chasing peak experiences, right? Which become hollow, and I think a lot of, unfortunately, the New Age movement, is that they're chasing peak experiences and that bliss state, right? Which I see as this bliss state or this peak experience is, it is an aspect. It's something that we can get a flavor, a taste of something, that's beyond our mundane materialist nature. And yet it's not the goal to always be in that state. And it's about, again, like coming back into that state of wielding the power within ourselves. And so I think of how do we activate our technology as a human, as a natural human. We have like this potential that has been untapped in our inner relationship with energy and the universe and nature, which can like raise us to a whole new level, of possible joy and creation on this planet and interaction, So I think that's what some of that points to, but it's twisted or inverted, or it becomes again a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it gets people stuck in materialism, right? And the 5 sense illusion. And you guys both said really good points. My wheels were turning. That's really good. It's interesting that when you have that inner shame and you're not working with yourself, you're not healing, who benefits from that, right? Most of the time, the first one to benefit is big pharma, because when you're not feeling good, what do most people do? They go to a doctor, they go to a psychiatrist, they prescribe drugs to numb that down, shove that deeper in the unconscious. That creates a more violent shadow, and then you get anima possession or animus possession, right? Which all that really means is that it's exploding out of you because it's trying to get your attention. You're not listening. This is what archetypes are, right? Archetypes are like perception, a way of seeing. It's like another lens that you can put on the vessel. And so if you're not paying attention to that, the care aspect, then absolutely it's going to come out in really aggressive behavior.
There's a bypassing that can happen, right? When you, like you said, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to look there, right? It's difficult, it's painful. It leads to that pushing down or avoidance of aspects of ourself. That leads to chaos and violence and staying stuck.
Yes, absolutely. The potential of humans to really integrate correctly for the future. I mean, I really do, through my research and my experience and using intuition and logic and reason, our ancient ancestors were far more advanced than we were. Now, maybe not in a material sense, and I think yes, but on a different polarity, right? The using energy, absolutely, they were far more advanced. You know, I mean, we can look at the pyramids, lifting stones, all this kind of stuff. That knowledge of nature is what separates us from them, which I think is really important. Even the indigenous cultures nowadays, they understand how the weather's going to go in the next few days. How?
So nowadays, well, I guess the indigenous, that you're referring to, they looked outward to nature, the stars, they saw the correlations within themselves, right? This integration. And yet what I see now is people are looking outward in very fragmented ways for experiences. And that often leads to becoming a follower of like gurus or, teachers that then becomes very connected to the materialism of our world, And again, it's that pattern of deferring your own like responsibility to look within for the answers. I remember I was kind of, I would see myself as a seeker, and there was like a significant amount of time where I was really busy going places, connecting, learning, getting experiences, and it can be very a little bit addicting to, like people who just go to workshop or listen to this podcast or gain this knowledge or that. And I was hungry for all this knowledge. And there was a point where when I connected in, I just had this inner voice that said, stop chasing, stop going places. Now it's time to sit with yourself and integrate. You have enough. Like in a way, like you don't have to keep going out of myself for stuff. Go within and integrate, and the answers, the things will come together, right? Again, that balance.
Yes, well said. I mean, I think a lot of people in the truth movement, they're info junkies.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people. I was like seeking in an imbalanced state of mind, just constantly going down these rabbit holes, more and more and more. And although I have tons of books and I have a whole list of things that I want to read and go into, there is that balance of moving from info junkie to executing, taking action. So at some point you have to integrate the information that you have taken in and then release it, put it out in the world in whatever art form that may be. The processing stage and then the rhetoric stage. So a lot of people are stuck, in the grammar and even in the processing stage, right? The constant seeking is like it's a glitch in the processing stage. You haven't processed it full, complete to where you can actually put out your rhetoric or your action.
Yeah. And there's this
Well said.
insecurity a lot of the time of like, I need to know more. I don't know enough. Who am I to speak on this, so there are insecurities and fears get interrelated in why we get stuck. I think too, sometimes that seeking becomes too intellectual, and that there's other aspects of mentalism. It's not just intellect and logic, but there's also our intuition and our other ways of integrating information, which does include our body. And the wisdom and the messages of our body, the feedback loops within our system, that we need to attend to.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, that the masculine and feminine, right? I mean, that, and a lot of people nowadays are stuck in that left brain, that analytical side, where we need the feminine, the right brain of imagination, creativity, intuition. We need to incorporate that, which is called, the alchemical wedding, the middle pillar, where they're united in balance and integrated within the body as well. For sure. That's absolutely. And understanding the elements.
Right. That was on my mind too, was the elements, and how, again, that is one way of understanding nature, and our interconnection connects to the astrological aspects too.
Yep.
Yeah.
How else are we going to be quintessential, right? So yeah.
Man.
Keep it elemental, but yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
With the spirit on top, not the inverted way around, is dark occultist.
I like to say, studying the elements is the elementary. That's the foundational process.
Yeah.
So it's very important for the psyche, emotions, physical. This is what the elements are. It's all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're at an hour 43. I'm thinking this may be a good time to bring up any final points, anything that was on your mind, Will, that you wanted to share that maybe didn't get to.
Excellent. Great chat. I love bouncing these ideas back and forth with you guys. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Final thoughts. I would really say that, returning to nature, being spiritual, it needs to be demystified. And we need to bring it down and ground these concepts and integrate them. And, obviously that starts with awareness, taking small pieces and sitting with it for a period of time. I mean, we can see nowadays everything is just so fast paced. Attention span is really short. That's an effect of a cause, right? So, start with the elements and start with fire. And what does that mean? It's willpower, it's action, but sit with that and have a good understanding of that and incorporate that with yourself as well. It's, we take a lot of external information in and we forget to apply it to ourselves. It always should be applied to the self and the bigger picture, the environment, the world. So yeah, that's, I'll end that there.
I have, I guess, another question.
Cool.
So there's a resistance, and I think cultural religion has indoctrinated people to resist or fear nature, or somehow see these pursuits of pagan animistic practices as the devil, right?
Yeah.
And I think we need to address that, because that is part of this polarity. Yeah,
no, great question. Great question. This ultimately stems from the primal fear of death, right? I actually know people that are scared to go out into the woods, right? They're scared of nature and stuff. What we can learn from this is that, hey, guess what? Human beings are not the apex of creation. Nature, the natural forces, this is the apex. This is creation. So death is a part of life. It is not the end of existence. It's the end of a cycle, right? And from there, life begins as well. They're tied in, one and the same, just on opposite ends. And so even the cultural religions, they use this to their advantage, this primal fear of death. Right? If you don't do this, you're going to hell. You're going to burn forever, and I mean, all the cultural religions do that as well. So yeah, right. What we need to understand is, one, we need to understand that death is just the end of a cycle. And we can observe this even in nature, right? Nothing in nature just stops and it's done. No, it's transference. It's a transitioning stage. We, as energy and consciousness, do the same thing. We are just using this vessel temporarily, but also death of the self, death of consciousness. I've died many times, meaning who I was 10 years ago, I am no longer that person. I'm no longer that man, because my awareness has changed, my consciousness has changed, even my physical body, right? And my emotional state has changed. I'm someone totally different. That person is dead. So we need to understand this deeply and get comfortable with this. And people are scared of that, because what it means is they're scared of change, ultimately.
Yeah, because they built up this beautiful comfort zone and they're happy where they're at. And there's oodles of ego attachments to that. Yeah, Leslie, you're good.
Yeah, that window of tolerance doesn't equal the comfort zone. And that gets confused, I think. We're not really meant to be dominating nature. And I think that's the mindset that is taken over. We're not better than or separate from, or really in reality a species that can overrule natural law, right? There's a certain level of humility and awe that is, I think, necessary, that in the end, through that humility, we become that co-creator and conspirator with nature. We breathe together with each other and nature, and so ultimately, no matter what, illusions and delusions human beings have and the corrupt actions we take, nature will ultimately have the final word.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Well said. I love it. I love that. This is what, a lot of the animist and pagan, our ancestors, right? They understand this. They understand death. It was not a bad thing. Even the concept, of Odin, right? When he sacrificed onto himself through knowledge, he became Woden. Whoa, awe-inspiring. This is where woe comes from. And actually, the awe-inspiring is a female aspect of the anima. It's the beauty, it's the awe, it's the woe.
We have to have that.
Absolutely, for sure. And that's something that we can all individually experience, and we should recognize that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a really great conversation.
Yeah, Will, top notch, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. You both are excellent, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, so great. Yeah, and if you have another aspect of the divide that you would like to come back and talk about with us, just let us know.
Cool.
Yeah, we're going to keep on
He's got a lot of knowledge, Will. So, yeah, please tell the good folks out there everything you got going on, maybe even future projects and where they can find you, all that good stuff, which will be posted in the description with his links and all that. But
sweet. Yeah, I appreciate it. A one-stop shop link would be just Linktree/Will Keller. You can get to all my social media platforms and all my websites as well. Naturalfreedomleague.com is where we do, my partner John and I, we do our video podcast, and I have my presentations up there. Freedom Under Natural Law, co-creator of an excellent free online conference. Highly recommend people go check that out and check out the replays, and also stay in touch because we're going to announce Funnel 3 soon. And then I'm also a content creator on the One Great Work Network. And I have a whole bunch of presentations on there. So I would actually recommend a presentation that I did that I'm in the works of making a part 2, and that would be Revolt Against the Modern World and the Return to Nature. It has really good polarities or parallels to our conversation today, so people can go check that out. And
You're also, one of, I think, a cutting edge speaker on conscious parenting. So you got
thank you.
Great work out there. as well.
Yes, I appreciate that. That's a huge topic. I think more people need to have those conversations, in the aspect that I'm trying to bring it, right, on morality and life, the fundamentals, the objective principles of conscious parenting. That's kind of the lane that I stay in, versus talking about all these different parenting styles, even though I do touch on that. But there's tons of people that use the trendy term conscious parenting. But I'm referring to the objective principles of parenting. So that's a passionate topic on mine, and I think more men need to step up and talk about this aspect as well.
Great, that's awesome. So much potential for some really great content in the future.
Yeah, totally. You got some lucky kids and a lucky poppy yourself. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I got 1.5. So 1 and 3/4, a 9-year-old daughter and 2 dogs.
On your lap today.
Yeah, he's jumping up on me right now.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, thanks again, Will. So good.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you both.
All right.
Yeah, take care, brother.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you the next time.
Merci beaucoup.
All right.
Nature is our God, we surviving over here. Natural, we keep it live over here.
So, when we perceive the ways of nature, we remove conflict within ourselves and discover a harmony of body and mind in accord with the flow of the universe.
Always search the soul for the rhythm.
All the elders and the youth, it's time to expose the lies and uplift the truth. Come on, know the state of the world.
Understand, man, universal law.
People all over the world. Know the state of the world.
Understand, man, universal law.
From city to city. From city to city.
Damn, will we ever awaken your mind?
Natural law is king.